If there's one thing the Roman Empire had plenty of, it was batshit crazy emperors. Most people have heard of the likes of Caligula, Nero, and Commodus, but today we're talking about a guy who makes them look tame. Meet Elagabalus, teenage emperor, religious chaos agent, party animal, and absolute menace to Roman society. His reign was short, but it was packed with scandal, debauchery, and some of the weirdest behaviour in history. Elagabalus is also known for his gender fluidity, with several modern writers claiming that he was transgender. Historians have said he abandoned himself to the grossest pleasures with ungoverned fury, lived an unspeakably disgusting life, and was probably the least capable emperor Rome ever had. So who was this guy? And how did he go from ruling Rome to having his corpse chucked in a river? Let's get into it. Elagabalus was born Sextus Varius Avitus Bassianus in Syria in around 204 AD. His cousin was the Emperor Caracalla, a pretty awful human being who was famously assassinated while going for a wee. When Caracalla died, he was succeeded by a guy called Macrinus, but Elagabalus' grandmother, Julia Maesa, had other ideas. She was a political genius who decided her teenage grandson should be emperor instead. She spread rumours about Macrinus to get the army on board, and boom, Macrinus was executed. At just 14 years old, Elagabalus was in charge of the most powerful empire in the world. What could go wrong? First order of business? Make Rome worship his favourite god, Elagabal, who was a Syrian sun deity. He built a massive temple, forced sacred Roman relics inside, and made senators watch him dance in elaborate ceremonies. Yes, really. If that wasn't controversial enough, he married a Vestal Virgin called Aquila Severa, a priestess who was supposed to stay chaste or be buried alive. In fact, she was the high priestess. Romans were not happy about this. But that was just the beginning. Elagabalus' marriage to Aquila Severa was just one in a long line of dubious sexual escapades. He was romantically involved with both women and men, with a total of 6 marriages to 3 women and 2 men, including to Aquila Severa twice. His third wife was the widow of a man he had recently executed, which was a particularly classy move. He also opened a brothel inside his palace, where he personally worked as a prostitute, wore wigs and makeup, shaved his body hair and wanted to be called lady instead of lord, and allegedly offered huge sums of money to any doctor who could perform a gender reassignment surgery. The Roman historian Dio Cassius even wrote that he only slept with women so he could learn to imitate their behaviour and better please his male lovers. These male lovers were usually chosen for anatomical reasons. One such fitty was an athlete called Zoticus, who was singled out when Elagabalus heard about Zoticus' sexy bod and enormous penis. At this point, the sources differ. Dio claimed that Zoticus was unable to rise to the occasion because another of Elagabalus' male lovers had slipped something into his drink out of jealousy. As a result, Zoticus was unceremoniously booted out and exiled from Italy. However, the Historia Augusta states that Elagabalus and Zoticus were married, with Elagabalus acting the part of the wife in the relationship. Elagabalus seemed to have a thing for sports stars. His other long-term male partner was Hierocles, a handsome young charioteer from Anatolia. Elagabalus was apparently smitten after Hierocles fell over in front of him during a chariot race. He referred to Hierocles as his husband and himself as the wife and queen of Hierocles. It's anecdotes like this which have led some modern historians to suggest that Elagabalus was transgender and identified as a woman. While homosexuality was not uncommon and carried very little stigma, it was understood that high-ranking men would only ever be the top. To allow yourself to be penetrated implied weakness and effeminacy, so Elagabalus behaved as a woman in almost every way. As for whether he was transgender, it's risky to apply modern labels or identities to the past, as historical figures saw things very differently to us. However, it seems clear that Elagabalus firmly rejected traditional Roman ideas of gender. When he wasn't causing religious or sexual scandals, Elagabalus was throwing insane parties. Literally insane. Some highlights included guests being smothered to death by rose petals, because why not? Tying guests to a water wheel and watching as some of them drowned. Serving flamingo brains, camel heels and rice mixed with pearls, very life of Brian. Releasing tame lions and leopards onto guests just to watch them freak out. Handing out jars full of flies and scorpions as party favours, and hiding whoopee cushions beneath the seats, which would also cause guests to fall onto the floor. Fun! By this point, everyone, including his own grandmother, had had enough. His nan decided it was time for a new emperor and switched sides to support Elagabalus' cousin, Severus Alexander. Elagabalus wasn't thrilled. He tried to have Severus Alexander killed, but that backfired spectacularly. The Praetorian Guard turned on him and started to riot. In a scene that just screams teenage brat or Cartman from South Park, Elagabalus started freaking out and threatened to execute people for not respecting his authority. In a last-ditch effort, he ran for his life, dragging his mother along with him. They were both caught and brutally butchered. And because Rome really wanted to erase him from history, his body was dragged through the streets, thrown into the sewer, and dumped into the river Tiber. Honestly, that's an Olympic-level execution. Syrian priests had prophesied that Elagabalus would die a violent death, which made him super paranoid. He therefore prepared various means of taking his own life in case he ever needed to, which included silken nooses and building a really high, bejewelled tower to throw himself off. He declared that even his own death should be fabulous and extravagant. Sadly, it was anything but. Was he a terrible emperor? Absolutely. Was he ahead of his time? Maybe. Was he one of the most entertaining figures in history? Without a doubt. Let me know what you think in the comments. Was he a misunderstood trailblazer or just a complete disaster? And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any updates.